Hello, my name is Daniel Burgess. Today I'm going to be talking to you about what I call the God spell. All through the Bible, God speaks in a way that if you do this, I'll do this, but if you do that, I'll do that. And so we control the form that God takes to rule us, is what it's saying. And so God is the power. And so anybody who draws on power from the other side of the void, where energy's in a state of, what do they call it? Potential, excuse me. It exists in another dimension, and it manifests in this dimension as energy, but it exists on the other side of a void as potential. And so when you draw on that power, you open a door to change, and depending on your position in the universe, that change will be good or evil. And so the God spell is how to channel that force and to generate a good God. Yeah, I know people don't like this. God spell, if you look it up, it'll say it was an English word from good spelling. Good and God are the same word, essentially, because God is good. God is the only thing that's good. That's a New Testament doctrine. And so they're playing word semantics. That doesn't mean a God spell to cast a God spell. It does. And at some point in time, you're going to have to stop listening to everybody and start finding out what things mean for yourself. Like all these people that naysay and they just talk out of the side of their neck, it's not going to help you learn anything. Listen to somebody say, no, that's not right, if they don't offer a solution, if they don't offer a reasonable answer to the thing that's not understood. And that's what I'm going to try to give y'all today. So, without further ado, I've talked about the beginner's guide to casting the God spell, and I'm going to give it to y'all today, Lord willing. I've given him plenty of time to crush me and destroy me. Seems like he's going to have mercy, and I believe God wants me to teach you these things because people have been using the Bible this way, and if you don't see what people have been doing with the Bible, you're not going to be able to really move forward with the religions in an honest way. And so to begin explaining the God spell, we're going to go to the beginning of Genesis. And in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God hovered on the surface of the water, looking into his reflection. And he saw the darkness, and he said, "Be light," and there was light, and the light was good, and that was the first day. And so that's where this comes from. The idea that God's looking into water to create our world. That's telling the future because he knew what he was going to make and then he made it. So when he saw the image on the water, it manifested as our reality. This is depicting God as a wizard water scrying to exercise the power of creation. And people miss this, and then God transforms the source. Elohim means the source. God transforms the source into everything in our world, including the waters of chaos. God divided what did he divide? It tells you the source. The source is what was divided, and it became light and dark. It became the dark waters of chaos and the source of light and life. And so the waters of chaos, the idea is that they're desolate. There's no life in them. There's no land to stand on. It's just raging, chaotic, freezing cold ocean water, with a Leviathan down in there waiting to swallow you whole. It's the devourer of life and the giver of life on one side and the other. Antipodal forces. This is what Genesis is describing. Christians hate this, but they need to tear it out of their Bible and burn it if they don't like it. And this is fundamental to Christianity because Jesus is founded on this power that I'm going to show you. But so Elohim is the source. We go to the word God to start, and so the source of God, to think the way that the Sophers think, they're thinking about all of the existence of these stories as words on a scroll. And when you read them, it's light that's carrying the energy form that the letter represents into your mind and creating an image in your mind. So God's the source. So where's the source of the word God, it's at the beginning of the sentence. So we're going to go from God to the beginning of the sentence. And the beginning of the sentence is the word Barashit. And Barashit means the beginning. So the first word means first. and so God, meaning the source, which is the first, God is the third word. So the third word means first, and it has the same meaning as the first word. So 1 is 3. They're telling you 1 is 3. So when we look at the word beginning, what's the source of the first word of the beginning? It's the letter B, and the letter B is the number 2. And so creation begins with the number 2. Why doesn't it begin with the number 1? Well, because the 1 can't be known. If all things are 1, light and darkness are 1, good and evil are 1, hot and cold are 1, then nothing can be perceived and nothing can be known. So we can't start with the 1. We got to start with 2 and divide into duality so we can begin to perceive something with contrast. So the Sophers added the dagesh to signify the sound as B, and the dagesh is a dot, and that's the dot in the palace, and the dot is 1 and the dot is 10. And this is the great mystery that I'm going to reveal to you today. How 1 is 3 and 1 is 10, and that's 3, 7. But I know this stuff sounds a little funny, but it's legit. So when you put the dot in the palace, the B, which is 2, has 1 inside of it. So the 1 that you can't see is in the 2, so you can see it. So it's creating an image of God that can be known. The first word means first, and the second word is create. The second word is barar, and create means to divide into 2. It's the root word for a covenant, and when they cut covenant in the Old Testament, if you look it up, cut meant to divide, and they would cut the animal in half down the middle and divide it into 2 equal parts. And so the word create, which is the second word, means to divide into 2. So the first word means first, the second word means to divide into 2 portions, and the third word is the source, which is 3 and 1. 1 is 3. So they're telling you this from the beginning. And the letter B is the word bath, and bath or beth can mean a house or a vessel, and it also means a water pool for measuring water. So a pool of water for scrying. Why would that be a water scrying pool? Because God's looking into the surface of the water in the story. So the hidden meanings are only expressing the revealed meanings and making them more detailed and more specific. People get concerned about these esoteric meanings in Scripture, but they're 100% a part of the story. These were the masters of storytellers, and they were the masters of literary form encryption. Like, what do you expect from these people? But so B can be in a bath. It can mean a daughter. And what's a daughter? It's a vessel that you put the spirit of the Father into, and then you fill it with the knowledge and spirit and soul of the Father. And she spreads His image into the earth and makes a kingdom out of it. We call them grandkids or a family. But so B being the letter 2, the vesica is an expression of 2 units or 2 circles or 2 dots, and when you create a circle 1, and then you create another circle with the center of the circle and the edges of the circles lined up, you create the vesica, and this creates a half-size circle in the middle, which would be the crowning vesica. It looks like a human baby being born from a mother's womb. And it's the perfect expression of the dot in the palace. But so when you divide, like the word create meaning to divide, the source can't be broken, and so we're going to reflect the source. This is teaching sorcery, this is sorcery. It's number magic. It's the root of number theory. This is the beginning of number theory. It's the beginning of mathematics, you know. But the idea is that the one is everything and it can't be broken, and so it's going to be multiplied through reflection. And so when you reflect one across, when you project one across a reflective plane and create two, you create a midpoint three. So you can't create two without creating three, and all numbers can be expressed as a form of 1, 2, or 3. And so the whole number itself represents one unit, but it's really the whole series of units, you know. So you take like 1 through 10, 1 is 10, so those 10 are just inside of one big unit, you know. And so this is kind of how scaling and counting come together. But so when you take a natural series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you mirror it across a reflective plane, you'll have 1 and 1 on both sides of the mirror. Well, that's 2. And then so 1, 2, 2 on both sides of the mirror is 4. 3 on both sides of the mirror is 6. 4 on both sides of the mirror is 8. And so reflecting linear series creates all even numbers. And then all odd numbers are created by seeding the empty place in the middle of an even number. And so you take the source and you put them in the womb in the empty place, and then it creates an odd number, which is channeling masculine power. So if you take the word barashit, the first word of Scripture, the B at the beginning of the word is a definite article, and it represents 2. So if we take the word into 2 portions, it's a 6-letter word. It divides the word into 2 words, barashit, and barar means to create. It's also the second word of Scripture. But when you divide the first word into 2, you get create, set, create a substitute. Set means a substitute or a placement, and when and so Elohim is the source, which we need a substitute to know. So we have 1, 2, 3 to know God, the substitute for the source. And they have a tradition called query peptum, which means the perpetual reading. And when they come to the word of the name of God revealed to Moses, which is the tetragrammaton, it meant the being, they won't read the tetragrammaton, they'll read the vowel sounds for Elohim, or Adonai if Elohim's too close. But the idea of Elohim as a substitute is present in this tradition, which is as old as it's pretty. I guess it's as old as Torah. I haven't looked at how long the Jews haven't been speaking the name of God, but that's not something that they're supposed to do. But so we need a substitute to know God, and so we're going to substitute with 1, 2, 3. And when you separate, so the substitute in between the word barar on both ends, the substitute becomes a mirror reflecting the power of creation on both sides. And when you take the first 3 words of Scripture together, the beginning is 1, barar is 2, and then the source is 3. And so creation is a mirror between the source on both sides. And so 1, 2, 3 is expressing all of creation and the idea of creating a number through mirroring. And this is the mystery of the tetrad, or the triad. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the tetrad today very much, but I'm going to talk about the triad. And the mystery of the triad is that 1 is 3 and 3 is 1. And so 1 equals 3, that's equal to 1, 1, 1. That's equal to 3, 3, 3, which is equal to 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, which is equal to 9. And this is why 1, 2, 3 is signifying base 10, because when you take 1 is 3, it becomes 9, and that's the order of 9, which creates base 10. And so putting 9 on a circle is what creates base 10. I know this is a lot. I spent years trying to find these answers, and the Lord led me to the truth. But the order of 9 puts 1 through 9 on a circle, and when you get to the end, you go back to the beginning, except 1 is 10. And so you'll go around from 10 to 18, and then the 1 column, you start over with 19. And when you arrange the order of 9 this way in a circle, which the circle represents time, which is calculating number in the circle of your skull, because this is where our calendars and numbers and measurements exist. Here. But the order of 9, I'll show you with the pillars or the columns. You see the 1 column, 1 is 10, 10, 1 plus 0 is 1. 19, 1 plus 9 is 10, 1 plus 0 is 1. So you take any column, and that's what happens. Like the 3 column, 21, 2 plus 1 is 3. 12, 1 plus 2 is 3. And so this creates columns. And so here's a chart showing these columns, just like I had in the circle, but on a linear graph. And you can see, if you go anywhere in the chart, like the column 8, 17, 26, 35, 44, 53, every number on this series, if you reduce them through what's known as mispar katan, or lesser numbering, to reduce the value, mispar katan, mispari, they reduce down to this original order of 9. And so the original order of 9, which is this series on a revolving circle, like every number after 9, it's just a new form of that number. It's just as time goes on, these numbers expand, and it's like the descendant of a family. And so reducing a number with the mispar katan mispari cipher is a way of revealing the essence of the word, the real essence underneath. And this is all an expression of 3 is 1, because 1 is 3, so 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, that's 9, and that's the order of base 10. There's a lot to this stuff. But that's the idea of the union of the triangle and the circle. That's the natural expression of 1 as a circle is also 3 as a triangle. And the triangle is the natural byproduct of the vesica. When you make the vesica, it produces triangles everywhere. But so to create 2, you get 3 again. And when you inscribe a triangle, a circle with the triangle, it divides the circle into thirds: 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. And when you create a vesica over a line, it divides the line into 3 equal portions, and it creates a scale of 3 units. The vesica creates a scale of 3 units. And so that line is 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. And if you fold it up, you can make an equilateral triangle. Or if you connect it end to end in a circle, the points between the 3 segments would make an equilateral triangle. So 1 is 3. Is expressed in the language of circles. And if you demarcate the edge, sorry about that. If you demarcate the edge of the 3 units and the midpoint of the 3 units, it creates a scale of 7 around 6. So if you can see that. And so dividing the vesica in this way, 1 through 3 is 1/3, and that equals 0.333 on forever. And then 3 through 7 would be 2/3, which is 0.666. So the 3, 7 is always above the 6, which the 6 represents the waters of chaos, and maybe you'll see that as I keep going. But so 3 and 7 Our this 3-7 stuff is wild. I want to show y'all dividing a scale as 1 is 10. So if you take 1, the source, and divide it into 10 units, you create a scale of 10. And within that scale, I've highlighted 1 through 3, and then instead of going to 4, I went from 7 back down to 1. So I wanted to show you dividing 10 into a scale of 3 and 7. There's a lot going on with this, but to understand why 1 is 3 and 1 is 10 and how that's 3-7, you need to understand making a scale, which is a language of measurement to create the world. This is how you unlock the power of creation. And you can take one number and divide it into any scale you want, and then you can learn all about ratios and start generating any ratios you want. And with the scale, which is a cipher, you can give the cipher to your neighbor, and then y'all can build things with the same measurements and they can fit together. It's pretty amazing. Language of the sons of God. But this 3-7 thing is deep and it's really wild. When you go to the first verse of Genesis, it's 7 words. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In Hebrew, it's 7 words. And the things formed in the 7 words is God, heaven, and earth. The source that divided spirit, heaven, and matter, earth. So you have the 3 inside of the 7 in the first verse. You can see that. So if you take the absolute value of the words God, the heaven, and the earth, and add them together, God equals 86, the absolute value. The heaven equals 395, and the earth equals 296, which is 37 times 8. Throw that in there. But so when you add the 3 together, it equals 777. So the 3 words, the 3 names inside of the 7 words added together gives you 3 sevens as 777, which if you divide that by 21, it equals 37. This stuff's amazing, y'all. So because the first verse of Genesis is 7 words and 28 letters, you can divide it into 4 groups of 7 letters. And if you take the midpoint of each group of those 7, it spells the word Shalishah, which is the word third. So there's yet another way to get 3 out of the 7 times 4 at that point, if you can see that. I call this the menorah encryption because it's 4 menorahs, which I know a guy, he didn't appreciate this very much, but I think it's amazing. I knew to look for this. Like the second I was like, oh, it's 4 groups of 7, I need to see the midpoint. The midpoint of the whole first verse of Genesis is a conjunction. It's the word at. We still use it today. And it looks like an ox cart, and it's connecting this word to that word is what they'll tell you. But it's the beginning and the end. So at the midpoint of the first 7, you find the beginning and the end, which is the power of creation. But so when God revealed his name to Moses, when Moses is asking what his name is, he tells him that he's the being, and tells him the tetragrammaton. The exact spelling of the being, the name there, equals 21 in the absolute value, and it's mentioned 3 times in the verse. So you have 21 3 times revealing the name of God. And because this 3-7 form is the 1 is 3, the 1 is 10, this is the substitute so we can know God. And the first verse of Genesis is 7 words. The second verse is 14 words. So the first 2 verses form 21 words. So it just keeps going. The 3-7. I mean, this stuff is wild. The absolute value of the first verse of Genesis, if you take each letter of the 28 letters of the first 7 words, they add up together to equal 2,701. 2,701 plus its mirrored opposite, which God's staring in the mirror, looking at his opposite, right? And then he's going to say, be light, and they're going to come back together to make a new form. And so if you unite 2701 with its mirrored opposite, it equals 3773. And I think that's amazing. But so 2701 is the 73rd triangular number. And every outer edge of the 73rd triangular number is 1 through 73. And this creates a prime scale of power. And the midpoint is marked by 37. So you can see this pattern emerging all through the absolute value in the form of a triangle. This scale creates the imperial eights. And so this scale can be created by demarcating the spaces between your fingers. So the idea of the imperial eights is as the power of creation flowing through the hands is there. And this scale does amazing things when expressed as circles. Taking unit 1 and half size of that, and then half of half, or a quarter size circle, and uniting them in the vesica and in the seed of life unlocks all the important ratios. I don't want to say something like in totality or anything, but it unlocks root 2, root 3, root 5, and phi ratio in a lot of different ways. I'm going to give y'all a demonstration of using these circles to create the basic Platonic solids. I'm not going to get into the phi base, but it does create the phi base. But I'll start this video, and it'll begin with 1, 2, 3 generating a vesica. The large size circle would be 73, the mid 37, and the small 19, representing 1, half, and half of half. I think it looks like a hand with the 4 fingers pointed out. There's many ratios that can be generated with this pattern. It's a ratio generator. The Platonic solids can be generated. I'll show the cube, the octahedron, and the stella octangula. The vertices of the stella octangula create the inner octahedron. And I'll highlight the stella octangula. Okay, so from here, I'm going to use these ratio size circles for storytelling to tell you the story of the creation week. And this is using this craft of circle language to express a story to you, and it's lawful to do, but it's not really like anything etched in stone. This is just to help you see these patterns and to understand what these patterns are. Give me just a second. So we're going to start with 2 as a transformation of a B as the vesica, to create a vessel for God's Spirit. 3, which is the substitute, so we can see him to come into being. And on the first day, you'll see the vesica, I've divided it into 3 units, like the line I was showing you. And so, in the beginning, God, that's a realm. And you're going to see that in a minute. Created the heavens. So the source created the heavens. That's the second realm. And the earth, that's the third realm. And heaven is in between God and the earth. And so, day 1, God's going to divide light from darkness. Day 2, God's going to divide the sky from the sea. Day 3, God's going to divide the land from the sea. And so you can see inside of the circle for God, I'm putting another smaller circle for day 1. And day 1, where God divides light from dark. Day 2, God divides sky from sea. Day 3, God divides land from sea. And so you can see how it's starting to shape together. And then day 4, God's going to multiply. God's going to create addition. He's going to create offspring. And so day 4, God decorates the space on day 1 with the sun, moon, and stars. Day 5, God decorates the sky and the sea with birds and with creatures in the ocean. So day 5 goes with day 2. And day 6, God created the land-dwelling creatures and the creatures in the rivers and the seas, which goes with day 3, where God brought the land up. And so God's subtracting for 3 days, and God's adding for 3 days. Subtraction is division is series subtraction. Multiplication is series addition. So the 1, 2, 3 is everything. And the 7th day, 7 is the force holding 6 together. When you have 6 units, it creates a scale of 7, which you can see in the Vesica. So this divides the creation into 10. 1 is 10. The first week is 10. And you have 3 realms, where God is, where heaven is, where earth is. And God subtracted light from dark. He subtracted air from water, which is the spirit, which is peace, from chaos in the water. And then he subtracted land from water and made them separate things. And the land gives you a strong foundation. In the water, you're just drowning in darkness. So we need these 3 boundaries. We have to keep our boundaries. No, what a fundamental doctrine to your mental health. You're not going to have mental health till you keep your boundaries. And you got to have a space to exist. And you can't exist without a space. What this world is a womb. Like the way your mother's womb gives you life, it's a world for you to come into being. And when you get out of the womb, you're just in a bigger womb. And because if there is no place to move around, there is no air to breathe, there's no light to see, then you don't exist. So just having a body isn't enough. You have to have a place to exist with your body. So the outer space around you is just as much a part of your body as the inner space. And they're trying to teach you this. So, but the 7th day is when God rested from his works. And when God rested from his works, what happens when you go to sleep? You deeply dwell in your body. So God's going to sleep in this new body that he formed. His spirit's going to fully and deeply dwell. What happens when you want to wake somebody up that's resting, that's asleep? You got to stir up their mind because it's deep within their body. And so that's describing this union of God with creation being deep and so strong it controls what you can see. Yeah. But on the 6th day, God made Adam. Adam means the mud man. The mud. Adama means mud. And it's the red mud. So the blood is the mud that comes out of the earth and becomes a man. But it's not a man until God breathes the spirit of the source into him, the spirit of life. And so the man became a living soul. It says in Genesis 2, verse 7, Adama, soul, life force. The Adam is 50, and the life force is 23. So when you add them together, it's 73. and so the mud man, the dirt, plus the spirit, that's a golem. And the word golem is spelled Gimel Lamed Mem, and that adds up to 73 in the absolute cipher. So, whoever wrote the Bible intended this. Whoever wrote the Bible intended this. And the 3-7 is the Sephirot. And people would try to tell you this is medieval mysticism and sorcery, and it's evil. But whoever created the Bible started Kabbalah, and it's not... It's way older than 2,000 years. It's as old as the Torah. Whoever wrote these books knew what Kabbalah was. What they were talking about by medieval times, like, was already developed in the Torah. This is all Torah. But they'll try to tell you that the doctrine of the Sephirot comes from the Sephirot, the book of creation, which is a medieval book, which they date the oral tradition of the book back to about the 2nd century, is as far as they feel they can take that. But it's dated, for like between 1100 and 1500 AD, something like that. I didn't look it up, but with my notes here. But so in the Sefer Yetzirah, this is what it says about the 10 Sephirot of nothingness. Their measure is 10, which have no end, a depth of beginning, a depth of end, a depth of good, a depth of evil, a depth of above, a depth of below, a depth of the east, a depth of the west, a depth of the north, a depth of the south. The singular master, God, faithful king, dominates over them all from his holy dwellings until eternity of eternities. So the oldest rabbi talking about the 10 Sephirot is describing them as a collection of antipodal forces, of things separated into duality, just like God was doing on the first 3 days. There's a more this is considered a more modern depiction of the Sephirot, where they've broken these 10 into a more specific machination, I guess you could say. But I follow the Chabad Lufa doctrines of the Sephirot. And when I say I follow them, that's where I learned this stuff. I'm a biblical researcher. I just wanted to know what the Bible meant. I went to church. I was raised this way. Nobody knew what they were talking about. I was very frustrated by the age of 10. I was like, I give up on all these adults and I'll find the answers. So I went looking for them. But I developed a method of exegesis that's professional. It's academic. It's what people pay a lot of money to learn. God gave it to me for free, and God hands me these answers all day long. But when doing research, the Chabad dynasty, they have a website and they've got so much information. You can find out anything you want about Judaism. You can find out everything you want to know about governmental Torah and governmental Kabbalah, because they're talking all about it. But so the first 3 Sephirot represent the gate of the intellect, and that's Chokmah, Bina, and Dot. Some people will call the 3 the crown, and so they'll call it the Keter, which makes 4, but it's 10, not 11. Sephirot. That's something that the Sefer Yetzirah says. But so the Chabad, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, because I barely know any Jews. I get to be pen pals with a couple, but I don't get to talk to them a lot. But they'll tell you that the first attribute of the Sephirot is the Chokmah, and the Chokmah is wisdom, and wisdom equals 3/7. If you take the absolute value of wisdom, it equals 73. If you take the lesser cipher, hold on, let me make sure I'm saying this right. I forgot my note. But yeah, the absolute value should be 73, and then the lesser cipher, the ordinal cipher is 37, and then the mispar kotai, the lesser cipher is 19. So this prime scale of power that I'm talking about, it comes from the word wisdom, and it's the edge of the 73rd triangle number that the first verse of Genesis makes. So this 3/7 is this substitute, so we can know God, and it acts like God, and it's like transforming and multiplying itself everywhere. It's amazing. And so the 3/7 in the Chokmah, you can see it at the gate of the Sephirot, and then you can see it in the 3 Sephirot of the intellect over the 7 Sephirot of the body. So that's above and below type of mentality. But so Chokmah would be wisdom, Bina would be knowledge, and Dot would be like experience. Is kind of the idea. And so how wise you are, how much experience you have, and how good you are at calculating your wisdom and your experience together, this controls the energy that animates the body. And it flows into the right and left hand, which are depicted as relaxation and restraint. I'll let it flow freely. I'll hold it back completely. And so that's called the Kesed and the Givera, the right and the left hand. And they associate like benevolence with the unrestrained hand, because it's giving. And they associate restraint with judgment, because it's going to make you take a form. And the Tiferet, which is the heart, it balances the right and left hand. And when balance comes, then the power of the king is unlocked, more or less. And then you get to the next group of three Sephirot, which is the Netchats, which would be like dominance, the Hud, which would be submission, and the Yisod, which is the generative function, but it's the gate for the soul to come out and to take form in another vessel. And it's what fills the cup of Malkuth, which is the seventh Sephirot, which is the Sephirot of the king. And so the balance of the three energizing the seven is what creates a character, what creates a soul. And this stuff's amazing for sure. But it's as old as Torah. I showed you how the creation narrative is the Sephirot to the best of my ability, which we're going to keep elaborating on that. But Daniel Myers is a Jewish scholar. He wrote the structural analysis of the Jewish calendar and its political implications in 1987 for a journal called Anthropos. Really cool stuff. I'm going to read some of this to you. He makes an argument that the Sephirot is as old as Torah because the 10 Sephirot that I just described to you that people consider more modern, this setup of Chokmah, Bina, and Dot with the Tiferet balancing the right and left hand and the Yisod balancing the right and left foundation, creating the image of the king. He makes an argument that it's built into the calendar, and this is true. And the Sephirot is as old as the Torah, and you don't understand it unless you understand how to make a king and kingdom. So I'm going to read to you some of what Daniel Myers has to say. Let's see here. So I'm just going to read some excerpts from his article, and you guys can check it out. I have it posted on my Telegram if y'all want to read it. The dates of the most important religious festivals are given in the Pentateuch. I've always said that wrong. That is to say, insofar as we are dealing with the real festivals, which he cites Leviticus 23, 5 through 6, 15 through 16, 21, 24, 27, 34, and 39, to see which festivals he's talking about. He also cites Deuteronomy 16, 1, 9, 10, 13, and 16. So these are the festivals that he's referring to, which I'm going to skip down. He says, among the mystics and students of Kabbalah, which in a great many respects can be viewed as the cosmological doctrine of Judaism, this manner of ordering is considered structural for man and the cosmos, for time and for place, and hence also for the calendar. The Jewish mystics view man as a microcosm whose structure is derived from the macrocosm. Creation as a whole, structurally, the one is not fundamentally different from the other. The macrocosm was created by means of 10 instruments or attributes which were used by the Creator. 3 of these are of an intellectual nature, and 7 are not. At all levels of creation, and according to Jewish mysticism, there are, apart from the material world, also various spiritual worlds. These instruments play a role in structuring principles. Similarly, distinction is drawn in the human microcosm between the 3 intellectual attributes and the 7 non-intellectual attributes. The former have their physiological pendant in the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the translation from brain to marrow, whereas the latter are related to the 7 organs and limb. Apart from this, they also have a spiritual counterpart in the 3 types of intellect and 7 emotional attributes, which are viewed as 10 powers of the soul. The 3 intellectual attributes are viewed as creating attributes, whereas the other 7 are viewed as more derivatives of the 3. So the 3 forms the 7. And it's a structuring attributes. It is the group of the 7 attributes which are mainly relevant here, for whenever we deal with the structure, they emerge as 7 general defining principles. Although they are often not immediately indefinable as such, as they emerge in a variety of ways, Jewish ritual practice, according to the experts, the doctrine of the Sephirot of these instruments or attributes dates back to the heyday of Jewish mysticism during the Middle Ages in Spain. You can reference Wise in 1958 on page 163 and 164. According to the well-known scholar Gershom Scholem in 1960, page 120 through 121, the whole mystical doctrine dates primarily back to this period. The following will show, however, that we are dealing with ideas that are much older. So Daniel Myers is like, hey, this is what they said. They trace it back as far as medieval times, but this is as old as Torah, is what Daniel's going to say. And he goes on to say, the writers of the 7 Sephirot, the series of the 7 Sephirot consists of 2 separate triads and of 1 separate Sephirah. The first pair of concepts is the Hesed and the Gevurah, affection and strength, both of which are united in the Tiferet, or the splendor. The meaning of these concepts is closer to their literal translation than that of the following 3, which are derivatives of the first 3 and are also less denotive. They are the Netzah, the Had, or victory, and the majesty, united in Yesod, foundation. The Netzah and the Had are victory and majesty. I read that wrong. And so those are united in the Yesod, which will bring the balance between. It's really dominance and submission. These are more glorious Jewish ways of translating this thing, honestly. But finally, there is 1 separate Sephirah, the Malkuth, the kingdom or sovereignty, which can, however, be viewed as a culmination of all other Sephirot. Apart from these connotations, the 2 series of Sephirot, there is strictly separate relation between the Sephirah and one of the months. For the Sephirah order both space and time, one can observe this relation, for example, by closely examining the liturgy. One then sees that the prayers which belong to a particular festival have the characteristics of the particular Sephirah, and therefore the month within the festival falls is connected with that particular Sephirah. The first suggestion in this direction came from an informant who told me that this type of relation was said to exist, although he himself was not informed as to the actual nature of the relations themselves. This came to light in the course of my subsequent research. I thus noted that the word Melech, king, also occurs repeatedly in the prayers of the first month of the year. Melech is related to Malkuth, therefore the first month of the year would be connected with the Sephirah, which I'm going to skip ahead. Now to go back to the Sephiroth, this means that both the first and the 7th Sephirot can be taken as a beginning which in the series of 12 months leads to the following scheme containing 2 series of months, each which is connected with one Sephirot. So what I skipped over was basically saying that there's 2 New Years on both sides of the festivals of the 7 months of festivals, which I'm probably misquoting that. You'll have to forgive me. The Jewish calendar is really complicated. I just wanted to show you that Daniel Myers is saying that the calendar represents the Sephirot just as much as the creation of the soul within you, because the man is the macrocosm or microcosm of the calendar as a macrocosm, and the calendar is us on this earth spaceship moving through the universe in circles and calculating the circles as we travel. So it's the power of calculating time, which the king has to have to rule a kingdom. And that's the point, is that this kingdom is the body or the womb that you live in. And like he's showing the calendar as a Star of David. He didn't put the Star of David there. I put that there to show you that it is there in this structure, which we'll get into that some more. I was going to read this last part, but so the one above 6 parts of I'll show you in a minute. He's saying this comes from the book of Numbers. For when I'll read this last paragraph. For when the series of the Sephirot is taken to run from the 1st to the 7th month, the Malkuth to the Hesed is again the first in the series to Malkuth. These 2 months then stand on their own, while for the rest there are always 2 months connected with the same Sephirah. Thus we have 2 series of 7 months with a common beginning and end. The scheme of the 12 months of the year are accompanying the Sephiroth, and the festivals or commemoration of the days which fall within these months will help to clarify a great deal. So, yeah, it's hard to read somebody like that. And if you haven't been used to reading academic material, that's what it's like. It's kind of hard to understand at first, but you got to read it over and over and make sure you fill in all the blank spots and understand it. But I'm going to go back to the Chabad and show you a little bit of what they say about Malkuth. So you have what they call the Chokmah, Bina, and Dot, the 3 mothers. But they're the gate of the life force into the body. And then you have the heart balancing the right and left hands, and you have the Yesod balancing the right and left foundation. And then you have the Malkuth, which is the cup of the king's cup, is how I like to describe it. But I'm going to read to you what the Chabad say about the king's cup, the 10th Sephirah called Malkuth. It is the ultimate realization of the first Sephirah of Chokmah. So the end is the beginning, is what they're saying. Chokmah is Chokmah, the potential of what is. Malkuth is Ma. So Chokmah, the Ma is from Malkuth. In the Tetragrammaton, Malkuth is the final Hey, and the human body, Malkuth, is the mouth. Because that's where your spirit flows out from you and into another container. The Kabbalah parallels Malkuth to the personage of King David. Essentially, Malkuth is the receiver or recipient of influence from the higher Sephirot. The higher Sephirot would be the calendar forming my body in a cup, basically. I'm like water taking the form of the cup, and the calendar would be the cup making me take form. And so I'm a mini Sephirot inside of a larger Sephirot. In this respect, Malkuth has a feminine quality, because you're receiving and taking a spirit inside of your body. Masculine is putting the spirit inside of you, feminine's receiving it and filling up the cup, the empty place, the womb. In this respect, Malkuth has a feminine quality. Just as a woman receives from a man and gives birth to a child, so Malkuth receives from Zir, Anpin, and creates a new entity. In a kingdom, the king receives the people's acceptance of his sovereignty, and in return, he provides all the people's needs. So they're telling you that it expresses the relationship between the king creating a body of a kingdom to form a citizen of the kingdom and someone who serves the king. The last Sephirot, Malkuth, does not exert any influence of its own except that with which the other Sephirot pour into it. It is often compared to the moon. Though it has no light of its own, it reflects the sun's light as a new entity. So it's the light on the waters, right? The fusion of the Zir, Anpin, and the Malkuth is called in Kabbalah the Yikud Zin Zir. Anpin and Nukva Malkuth combined. I have no idea what any of that means. I'd have to go look it all up. As in a physical union that can procreate, all supernal diffusions are affected by the Yikuds. And I should have skipped reading over some of that stuff. But what I wanted you to see was that the Malkuth is associated with the surface of the water reflecting the light of the moon. So the light on the waters, if you take the Sephirot itself, and it's the 3 above the 7, and you reflect it in the water, you'll have the 7 above the 3 in the waters. And that's what's being described. The spirit of the king fills the king as a vessel, and his spirit flows out from him into the cup of the kingdom, shaping the kingdom. This is spirit conjuring magic, and it's how to conjure the spirit of the king, channel it into the body of the king, and then he's going to channel it into the body of a kingdom that you're within, and it's going to create and form the laws of the kingdom, form your body and shape your soul. So from 3 to 7 to 7 to 3, this is what this is, without a doubt. And there's so much I'd like to say about this stuff. When the Spirit of God moved upon the surface of the waters, in Hebrew, the phrase Spirit of God on the surface of the waters is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6 words, but they add up to 1369. If you take the absolute value of that passage, it equals 1369, and that's 37 times 73. 37 times 37. Excuse me, 37 square. Sorry, it's so specific. I hate misspeaking, but if you take 37 squared, I like to express it in the Vesica. A rhombic number is just a square number. You can transmute a square into a square number into a rhombic number. They're the same. It's just a little tilted for the rhombic number. It's a perfect square as a square. And then corner to corner would be root 2. And corner to corner will be 37 units across. And so the 37 square, the midline, so masculine power, it divides into ratios, and so here the scale of power is 5 to 5, but if you take 1 away over here, then you get 6 over here. Sorry, it doesn't work. And so you can divide into a greater or lesser portion, and if I take back and go to 6 over here and 4 over here, so I can divide it into a greater and lesser portion. I can take a side and give more to one and less to the other, or I can balance the two. And so if you take a square number and divide it by root 2 from corner to corner, then it's going to divide it into a greater and a lesser portion. And it'll divide the 37 square into the 37th triangular number over the 36th triangular number, if you can see that. And this is the spirit or the house of God settling on the surface of the waters. And when you create an interference pattern on the surface of the water, which is 2 circles creating a pattern, which is it comes from the vesica, it creates triangular numbers. And that's the 1 is 3, and 3 is 10, and that's the substitute for the form of God that we can know, which is this world. God's creating this world, and this world is an image so we can know him. If you take the first verse of Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The 5 words in the middle. So 5 is a hand from which the power of creation is going to flow. You take the 5 words in the middle. You got Bar, it's 3 letters. Elohim, it's 5 letters. Et, in the middle, it's 2 letters. The end and the beginning coming together, the power of God. And then it's followed by the heaven, which is 5 letters. And the conjunction... the second conjunction, which is 3 letters. So you got 3, 5, 2, 5, 3, which forms, if you're using the power of God, God's the end and the beginning, the Alpha and the Omega, or the Aleph and the Tet. And so he's the magic mirror where you unlock this power to create a number, right? And so it's acting out the story, which it's acting out counting. But so you take the 5 words on either side of the mirror and you get 7. So on one side of the mirror you got 3, 7. On the other side of the mirror you got 7, 3. So from 3 to 7 to 7 to 3. From 3, which is Chokmah, Bina, and Dot, to 7, which is the Sephirot of the body, to 7, the kingdom, which is you're within, which is going to shape the body, your body, 7, and create a spirit in your mind. You're going to be possessed with this spirit of the image of the king and the kingdom. Like, Daniel Myers was talking about the union of the calendar as 12 with around 10 points with a new beginning on either side. And that's the structure of the book of Numbers. I learned about that pattern from Mary Douglas, and she was working with Jacob Milgram and with another scholar named Gary Rensburg, I believe his name was. Those are some of the best sources you can get for chiasmus and literary framing in the Torah, as far as I know. But the Book of Numbers ring composition is designed after the pattern of the camp. So if you take the Book of Numbers, it's written in a chiastic structure, and the first section and the 7th section are what make the mirror between the rest of the 2 sides of the story. It divides the story in the middle. And so it goes from a story chapter to a law section, from a story section to a law section to 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 a story section to a law section, and then back to the beginning. And it has a 13th part of the story which goes with the first part of the story, because the end is the beginning. I know this is a lot, but it forms the Star of David, and it connects the story rungs, and the spaces in between the hexagram connects the law rungs. And so the Star, like, people try to tell you the Star of David isn't as old as Torah, and it's not ancient Judaism. They don't know what they're talking about, and it's fundamental to the Torah, and it's fundamental to the structure of the Book of Numbers. But so it's the structure of the book, and it's the structure of the camp of the people in the book. The camp makes this pattern, and when you create this pattern, you can see on the right here, as you read through the story, you're taking the structure of the camp through the 12 sections of the story, and so you're taking a star around a circle through 12 sections. The end is the beginning. It's acting out the sun and the heaven. When you put the serpent on the pole in the middle of 12, that creates a map of the celestial sphere. So the camp is a picture of heaven. So in Revelations, it says that the nations are many waters. The people are the waters. And they're reflecting the image of God from the heavens, which it's really kind of in reverse. Like we thought we were looking up at the waters above, where God put this image that's going to fill us. That's a little more accurate. But I'm just trying to get y'all to see the connection between an image shining from heaven, filling a vessel in the earth. It's filling the vessel of our kingdom, which is the picture of our calendar, and it's filling all of us with the light of heaven and the image of the King. But so when you know this story behaves like taking the sun through the circle of the year. And so when you know it and you read it, then you have an actual like mini universe inside of your head. They were literally possessing you with the spirit of heaven by creating a form that the spirit of heaven could dwell in to transfer it into you as a cup, into your mind. Like the first verse of Genesis is 7 words and 28 letters. Well, the 7th triangular number is 28 units. And so the first verse, not only does it make the triangle of the 73rd triangle with its absolute value, but just the letters itself make the 7th triangular number of 28 units. And so the gate of being that Chokmah, Bina, and Dot flow into the body, we're going to take the image of the substitute, the 3-7 God, the God, heaven, and earth in 7 words, and we're going to put it in our skull when we read it and we memorize it. It's going to be an image that animates the body. This is Gollum magic. The 73rd triangular number, you put it in the gate of consciousness and it animates the body. Mount Zion means the sunny mountain, the mountain of light. And when it peeks through the clouds and it comes through a smaller point, or it peeks over the mountains, it makes a triangle of light. Mount Zion is the heavenly kingdom. It's the image that's going to be revealed in your mind in the 1, 2, 3 gate of being. The Torah itself, with the book of Joshua, creates a literary frame which puts the whole Torah in the shape of a mountain, in the shape of a triangle. And you have Moses going up to the top of the mountain, getting the law and breaking it. And then the top of the mountain is him hanging out with God and receiving the second law. And then the third point of the peak is him receiving the second law. So the top 3 portions of the story is Deuteronomy... I can't read my note very well. I know it's hard to see this stuff. But Exodus 32, 33, and 34. 33 would be the chapter of the peak of Torah. Huh? And but it's Moses, the closest he got to God, more or less. And then the descendant back down into the book of Joshua, which is the inheritance of all of this. So when they form the Torah in the shape of the mountain of revelation, it's to be in the gate of your mind, to put it in the circle of your skull, so you can derive your being from it. Jesus was crucified at Golgotha. I didn't know this, and this blew me away, but Golgotha, it means the place of the skull, but it was where Adam's skull was supposed to be kept. And when Jesus was crucified and he gave up the ghost, there was a great earthquake, and it opened up a crack in the ground, is the tradition, and the blood of Jesus flowed down and filled the skull of Adam. And the skull is where the waters are. And so filling the skull of Adam is filling the skull of mankind with the Spirit of Christ. And the Spirit, just like these triangles, is going to represent Christ, the image of Christ ruling your body. I was really surprised I never heard of this, but there's an altar down underneath Golgotha, and the bottom of the bottommost sanctuary is where the skull of Adam was supposed to be. I'm pretty sure that the pirates took the skull to inherit, the waters of the earth, and that is that the skull and bones people got it now. And that's why they're the skull and bones people, and it's a claim to the inheritance of the authority to rule the earth. In the beginning of John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And the Word was with God, and everything that was made by God was made by the Word. If you add up the absolute value of the first verse there, it equals 300. I'm sorry. Let me back up. In the beginning was the word logos. If you take the absolute value of logos, it equals 373. So from 3 to 7 to 3. From the Son to the kingdom to the... You get it. Sorry, it's hard for me to keep talking like this, and this information is really complex. But when logos, it occurs 3 times in the sentence, in the exact spelling of equal in 373. Just like when God revealed his name to Moses, there's 3 spellings of 21. So whoever wrote the Gospels is grafting Jesus into this Sephirot of the creation week. They're using Genesis the way it was created to be used to create the Spirit of Jesus. Y'all got to deal with this. Y'all need to grow up. Y'all need to face the music. The value of the first verse of John is 3,621 of the Gospel of John. If you add 3,627 to the value of Genesis 1, which is 2,701, you get 6,328. 6,328 is exactly the 112th triangular number. The 112th triangular number, it nests a hexagon. I'm not going to get into explaining triangular numbers, but it nests a hexagon. The hexagon creates the vertices of the tetrarch. That's a little bonus. But so you can see this 3-7 triangle, the 37th triangle, which is 703 units. You can see it over this hexagon, which is making a pull in the middle of this triangle, and it's a pull of 6 of the 36th triangular number, which is 666 units. And it's divided by the center lines of 223 units, which I see as a permutation of be light. Be light in the book of Genesis, when God says be light, be light, be light the first time, it equals 232. So 232, so 223 here is the permutation of be light, dividing the chaotic waters, which is it's the perfect, it's the ultimate. 666 is, times 6. It's just way too many sixes. But the 666 represents the waters of chaos, and the house of the Lord is going to put the 666 in order. And the house of the Lord has 37 units on each side, putting a scale or a boundary around the chaotic waters of 666 and bringing it under control. This is every knee bowing to the image of Christ, that the blood filled the skull of Adam of all mankind. That's what they're saying. They're saying they're going to surround you on all sides with the spirit of the house of the Lord and make you submit. That's what this is depicting. And so you can depict this triangular number, the 112th triangular number, in the gate. They're grafting this image of Jesus made with the Sephirot in the creation week into your mind to rule you. And the triangle of Genesis 1, absolute value being 2,701 units. There's only one known passage where a verse equals 2,701 units. And maybe someone will discover some more, but I mean, I've met some Jewish people that says they've added them all up. And Genesis 8:14 is the last verse of the flood, and it's introducing Noahidic law. And so Genesis 8:14, in the second month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, the earth was dried. If you take the value of that verse, it equals 2,701, and so 2,701 represents the form of the substitute that we're going to use to know God, and this form is without and within, and it creates the order without to create the order within. This is about creating world order. That's what they're doing. And so when they graft Jesus into this, they're grafting him into the world order, which is Noahidic law. And the Noahide law it's basically, I mean, it's not much different than the 10 Commandments. I forgot to write them down. But you know, it's honor God, love life, you know, respect property, respect families. You know, that's basically the kind of thing that it is. Sorry I didn't get them out. But we're going to end this here, and hopefully you can see that whoever made the Bible made it to work this way. They made it to express the Sephirot and conjure in the spirit, to fill your mind, to change you, to give you a new birth, and to make you a new creature. And it's a citizen of a kingdom who submits under a king. And, you know, you're going to have to decide, like, if you believe all of this stuff or not, you know? Like, does mankind have to be ruled with the sword? Like, the flood is proof that we got to be ruled with the sword. It's to tell the king when the people rebel and they put off all order, that you'll have to take the war bow and use it against them. God hung his war bow in the cloud. It don't say a rainbow. That's light and dark version of the book. If you define the word, you'd know it's a war bow. The flood's a metaphor for war, when the power of the king needs to go to war. And then the Tower of Babel is when people say, let's make our own government with the Torah. They said, let us make our own Shem. And to keep them from being like us, the royals who rule, we're going to bound them with confusion. So if they try to get on the Torah mountain, they'll be bound in confusion. And you'll notice all the Christians fighting endlessly in confusion, because none of them understand the truth, because none of them can see this book or this religion for what it is, which is the religion of world power. Say these things out of love of life and love of others, in the name of Jesus Christ, because we should resurrect the spirit of the king, which is the spirit of 1, 2, 3, and the 3 is going to act like the 1, who's the life giver, you know, and we're going to grow out of this destruction and out of this dark night, y'all. We're almost to the end. There's going to be a big blood offering, is what I see. They're going to kill a whole bunch of people and try to bring in a new world. Hopefully the aliens will show up and God will show up and everybody will just have it out and we can all sit in the truth on the other side of this great apocalypse. It's nipping at the heels.